Yeah.
Maximum. Or earlier. Finish earlier.
Ja, du willst spätestens bis 9.
Kein Problem.
Achso, ja.
Trust me, I know why I asked this. Oh, Krishna. Ich hab ausgeleiert, müssen wir mal strammer machen, den Bügel. Mit der Zange oder wie vielleicht. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vadati Svavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudhakara Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Saganadam Matam Vidantam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Narita Shri Vishakam Vidamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhasute Vanamahiri Vanchakarpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhuvayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayana Namaskritya Naram Sharanaruttamam Devam Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiri Nashta Kayashva Gadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Yutamashloke Bhakti Bhagavate Nashtiki Om Tat Sat. So thank you very much for blessing me with your beautiful associations. And with your kind blessings, may this humble attempt to serve all of us become successful, so that I may speak Srila Prabhupada's words and remember my Guru Maharaj's instructions more fully, and so that we all can realize and apply the instructions more fully in our lives and become happy and liberate to Sri Krishna. I don't know, I prepared now here in English, Srimad Bhagavatam, and also the Transcendental Diaries in English, but I have a German Bhagavad Gita. So am I supposed to speak in English, or should I speak in German and then have the German Bhagavatam?
If it's possible,
in English.
Better in English.
Yeah, but is there an English Bhagavad Gita?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so here in Cologne, we have this beautiful tradition to read from the Transcendental Diaries. Travels with His Divine Grace, yes, Bhakti Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976 by Harishari Guru. And now we are. Is there a reading sign?
Is it like Is it?
Ist es nicht? Should we just stop there, Krishna?
At 8 November. 8 November.
2nd November.
8 November.
Let's see. Right. This is, let's see. So much better. This one did. He's 7th, okay, we're coming closer. Right, okay, so here's something late.
Starting from after Из Bhuvaneshwara, что там дальше?
Пришло письмо от Гуру Говинда Махараджа.
In Bhuvaneshwara, the letter of Guru Govinda Maharaj.
Here, Gauradesh Maharaj, from Gauradesh.
Yes.
That's right, okay. Oh, he is also living inside. Outside. Okay. Srila Gauradesh Maharaj wrote from Bhuvaneshwara expressing his ongoing frustration over the registration of our land there. He made a special trip to Calcutta to meet with Mr. Vijayananda Kanungo, the husband of Mrs. Chabhavi Kanungo, the donor of the land. Mrs. Kanungo had purchased the land and then donated it to ISKCON. Because her name does not appear on the settlement records, she has to sign some documents to establish her legal ownership. And she also has to produce an affidavit in connection with the Land Sealing Act, stating that she does not own more than 10 acres in Orissa. Then the gift to ISKCON can be registered. Govinda Maharaj complained that Mr. Kanungo was not being straightforward with him. First, he did not want to meet with him. Then, after several days, he did meet him, telling him that he had already sent him the affidavit by registered mail 5 days before. When Govinda returned to Orissa, however, no such documents had arrived. Furthermore, Mr. Kanungo had told him that the deed of sale for the land had already been given to Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur when he had given Prabhupada the deed of gift. Later, Maharaj found out that this was not so. Why he tells such lies? Maharaj wrote. I don't know. What is the mystery behind it? Srila Prabhupada, you know the best why such things are happening. Kindly tell me what I should do in such circumstances. Still, I'm trying to get the certified copy of the sale deed from the district office in Puri. Kindly bless me that I may come out successful in serving you here in Orissa. Srila Prabhupada advised him not to worry. I try to get the certified copy. Otherwise, what can be done? Do not be discouraged. Go on serving sincerely. Your success is your sincere desire to serve Krishna. Wow, beautiful. So do we have another fresher one which is not likely to fall out in the video? And there's this sticky notes, you know, in the first drawer on the right side. You could see. So, do you have some comments or something that came to your notice, to your kind notice in this short section?
The first impression was that Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they had to deal a lot with a lot of legal issues and all these, documents. And it's so difficult even for ordinary people what to say about young and non-experienced people, like first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So it was really challenging for them.
That's true. And here we can see that they even try to teach Srila Prabhupada. They speak in one way, like on the surface, everything appears to be very nice and smooth, and they give promise, to donate some land. And then later, when you return and you want to settle everything, to make it like official, it comes out that it's actually not the case. It's interesting, isn't it? But you cannot mess with Krishna. He's the biggest cheater. And his pure devotee, he knows, because he is so much in touch with Krishna. So Krishna informs them about everything. Something else? Something more? thing that comes to my attention when I look here is just some very short section, but Govinda Maharaj in the beginning expresses ongoing frustration over the registration of the land there, which was apparently not happening. So he felt frustrated, but I would consider maybe this frustration to be spiritual because he cannot move on with his devotional service. But still, in spite of feeling so much frustration, then what does he do? He takes shares in Srila Prabhupada. He's not speculating, but he's asking Srila Prabhupada, you are so experienced, kindly advise me what to do. This is a very nice lesson for us too in our life. If we feel frustration or pain or whatever is there, so many things. And it's also a good bridge to connect to today's topic and to my personal experience. So then, let's start with Srimad Bhagavatam. The verse is on the board. Well, since this is not a poetry verse, but prose, I'm not sure about repetition. Maybe that will be a little bit too confusing. But I will read it in Sanskrit and then we go through it word by word. Is that okay? Yeah? Do you usually do that? Or because prose is very hard to, repeat? So here we are in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam Purana, Amanam Puranam, Mahabhagavatam. And chapter 8, the character of Bharat Maharaj, and the first is text 13. Bhattishucha Muktabhavina Tatra Tatra Vishaktamati Pranaya Parariraya Kavanyat Skandinut Vati Ivam Utsanga Urasi Chadhayu Palalaya Chadayu Palalayan Mudam Paramam Avapa Patishu on the forest path. Cha also. Muktabhavina by the childish behavior of the deer. Tatra here and there. Vishaktamati whose mind was too much attracted. Pranaya with love. Bhara loaded. Hridaya whose heart. Karpanyat because of affection and love. Skandena by the shoulder. Utvahati carries. Evam in this way. Utsange sometimes on the lap. Urasi on the chest while sleeping. Cha also. Adhaya keeping. Upalalayan fondling. Like that, fondling. And mudam pleasure. Paramam very great. Avapa he fed. The translation of Prabhupada is Divine Grace, Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaj Bharata due to its childish behavior. Maharaj Bharata would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or when sleeping on his chest. In this way he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Purport. Maharaj Bharata left his home, wife, children, kingdom and everything else to advance his spiritual life in the forest. But again he fell victim to material affection due to his attachment to an insignificant pet deer. What, then, was the use of his renouncing his family? One who is serious in advancing his spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything but Krishna. Sometimes, in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities. But we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of our being victimized by material activities. So I will read again the translation of the verse. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaj Bharata due to its childish behavior. Maharaj Bharata would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or, when sleeping, on his chest. In this way he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. So maybe before I start with my prepared lecture, just to set the proper scene for us, the proper attitude, to empathize. Who of you had a child, a pet, or maybe a child which you fondled very dearly? Can we relate to that? Or maybe we saw some family members or friends. And for example, my sister, she has 2 dogs, you know. And the dogs, they are also sometimes very cute. For example, when you return home after the work or wherever you have been, they almost make cycles in the air, you know. They're just so happy. There's your pet, you know, like, you know, in the jungle and run and turn in circles, almost biting their tail. And they're just so cute to look at. So this is what happens here to Maharaj Bharata. He gets bound by this material affection. And now one could say, but you know, that's love, you know. And love is the real thing to look for in our life, if one is not so religious, right? People say, God is light, God is love, and this, you know, this is the highest goal, right? And while this is true, we also have to have the proper understanding. It's not just, you know, okay, just because I say love is the highest goal, you know, or God also is command and intelligence, you know, that helps me to live my life accordingly. So that's another thing, you know, to read or to have the theoretical knowledge and to have realized knowledge, which plays out in our behavior, in our character. And so here, in order to set a more broader scene, we will now read again the summary of the chapter, of the previous chapter, chapter 7, because that very much highlights which kind of devotee King Bharata actually is. He is actually the son of Maharaj Prithava, who appeared in the dynasty of Maharaj Priyavrata, the grandson, I think, of Brahma. The son is Manu, then Maharaj Priyavrata, and so this way it's like a lineage of great devotees, you know. And also Swayambhuva, he is one of the Mahajans. That's very important. And so his father was Shaktiya Vesha Avatar, like Srila Prabhupada. He is also Shaktiya Vesha Avatar. And it's been described that he had so many sons. And Maharaj Bharata was the eldest son. Yeah. And so he wanted him, because he was the most qualified also, he wanted him to be the emperor. And after Maharaj Bharata, this earth planet was named by the demigods, Bharatvarsha. So just to have some kind of understanding and growth. And now to go more into details, we want to read about the character of Maharaj Bharata to understand why he fell down, because apparently he was already on a very high level of devotion. So how come he fell down? Right? We want to prepare not to fall down. Even we may not be such highly elevated devotees like Maharaj Bharata, but from their gracious stories and life experience we can learn a lot. So therefore, please hear with rapt attention and eagerness to apply and to show in our mind how this relates to us. So the chapter summary of chapter 7 is entitled The Activities of King Bharata. In this chapter, the activities of King Bharat Maharaj, the emperor of the whole world, are described. Bharat Maharaj performed various ritualistic ceremonies, Vedic yajnas, and satisfied the Supreme Lord by his different modes of worship. In due course of time, he left home and resided in Hardbar and passed his days in devotional activities. Being ordered by his father, Lord Rishabhadev, Bharat Maharaj married Panchajani, the daughter of Vishvarupa. After this, he ruled the whole world peacefully. Formerly, this planet was known as Ajanabha, and after the reign of Maharaj Bharat, it became known as Bharatvarsha. Bharat Maharaj begot 5 sons in the womb of Panchajani, and he named the sons Sumati, Rashtrabrita, Sudarshana, Aparana, and Dhumraketu. Bharat Maharaj was very rigid in executing religious principles, and he's very strict, and following in the footsteps of his father. So he was very much concerned to closely follow the instructions, not just taking it lightly. He therefore ruled the citizens very successfully. Because he performed various yajnas to satisfy the Supreme Lord, he was personally very satisfied. Being of undisturbed mind, he increased his devotional activities unto Lord Vasudeva. Bharat Maharaj was competent in understanding the principles of saintly persons like Narada, and he followed in the footsteps of the sages. He also kept Lord Vasudeva constantly within his heart. After finishing his kingly duties, he divided his kingdom among his 5 sons. He then left home and went to the place of Pulaha, known as Pulaha Ashram. There he ate forest vegetables and fruits and worshipped Lord Vasudeva with everything available. Thus he increased his devotion to Lord Vasudeva, and he automatically began to realize further his transcendental, blissful life. Due to his highly advanced spiritual position, there were sometimes visible in his body the Ashtasattvika transformations, such as ecstatic crying and bodily trembling, which are symptoms of love of Godhead. It is understood that Maharaj Bharata worshipped the Supreme Lord with mantras mentioned in the Rig Veda, generally known as Gayatri Mantra, which aim at the Supreme Narayan, situated within the sun. So this morning, we heard from the Nectar of Devotion about one of these 8 ecstatic symptoms of trembling, right? And so generally they appear when one is on the platform of prema, but they are not steps, not like stairs. They are more like the colors of the rainbow, which are, gradually more darker or more lighter or, mixing. So sometimes these symptoms became manifested. And I heard also some time ago, I cannot give the quotation from there, but I heard that Maharaj Gauradesh was so highly elevated that he was already on the platform of Bhava, which is the next platform is Prema, Krishna Prema, where we chant the 10 offenses against the holy name. We want to attain Krishna Prema, love to Krishna, and then when we say you need to guard against committing those offenses. And the preceding platform of this is Bhava. So he was almost there, he almost achieved his goal. He was so deeply absorbed, and he gave up his beautiful wife, a peaceful kingdom, and a nice home, and everything, which normally is very hard to give up. Why? Because he was very satisfied by his devotional activities towards Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. So just imagine, such a highly elevated soul, So for me, for example, maybe my Guru Maharaj, I could imagine, this kind of cosmic caliber. But he went into the forest, following the Vanashram Dharma, to take Manapasta and eat the forest vegetables and fruits, and engage deep more in his worship of Lord Krishna. And still he falls down by finding some attraction to a deer that he pets, like he had this small dog or cat or baby or whatever that he fondled. You would not think generally that this is possible, right? It's like, this person already long time ago left this chewing the chew remnants back, right? But here we can see that no, Maharaj Gauradesh, he actually fell down for whichever reasons. And actually, I heard in the book that this was also because he neglected to associate with other sages. Because he did this all alone. He was living alone in his ashram. And in this regard, something very important comes to my mind, to my attention, not to my mind, to my consciousness, that Srila Prabhupada showed us when he was praying in front of the deities one time, and he was very absorbed in his prayer, so that one of his disciples afterwards, after the deity darshan, he asked him, what did you pray for? And Srila Prabhupada said, I prayed to be protected from Maya. And Srila Prabhupada very often raised the concern that his disciples, his devotees, are not sufficiently afraid of Maya. And so today's class is dedicated to this topic, the developing material attachments, due to not being very cautious, like here in this Srimad Bhagavatam verse today. Srila Prabhupada, he says, one who is serious in advancing his spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything but Krishna. This is like, I think, very important to set the frame to understand the degree of what happened here and how this is important for us. I just recently experienced something similar. Of course, I'm not on that platform and everything, but also because of neglecting, because of some misconception in my mind, and rather putting my faith in that, I neglected the association of the devotees. I neglected the association of the devotees. And then also my intelligence became familiar by so many things, and also, then I neglected my spiritual duties. So this is something that is really relevant, and that can happen to all of us. And maybe sometimes we observe, if we are a little longer in the movement, we can observe how sometimes the devotees leave, being disappointed with something or heartbroken by some mistreatment or something. So I'm very happy that I was allowed to experience this, whatever negative thing happened to me, because I hope that I may use this experience to better be able to relate to these people and to help them to still find back to Krishna. because really it's all based on a misconception, you know, taking shelter in our mind. For example, in the beginning I spoke of having love as the ultimate gain of life, right? Like aspiring to love everyone. Outwardly, worldly seen, so to say, externally, it looks like a very admirable, very worthy goal to love everyone, you know?
To love.
About
everyone.
But to love, to simply love, to develop this quality of love and be kind of guided by this feeling of love, you know? Instead of being guided by the intelligence, by spiritual intelligence, we can sometimes become sentimental. Sentimental is very interesting because senti refers to the senses and mental refers to the mind. So, and we know that the functions of the mind are to think, to feel, and to will. So sometimes when we neglect to follow strictly, for example, by chanting inattentive japa, neglecting maybe the reading, or usually trusting our own concoction, you know, our sentiments, you know, then we can again become unfortunate and experience more suffering by falling down from devotional service. And so to protect all of us, now we will continue with the class, which I will mainly read from different scriptures, because Srila Prabhupada is a best teacher and I just can be his vocal instrument. Yeah, so because one word very much struck my attention here in today's verse, kampanyat, because of affection and love. Does someone remember one verse from Bhagavad Gita where this word comes? It's also mentioned. Any suggestions? Please, if you have some suggestions, show me.
No, I'm just asking if the sound is alright.
Okay. In the second chapter, which for us is really essential, the seventh verse starts with that word immediately. Kampanya dosho pahatha savava Prisha mitvam dharma samuda cheta Yashreyasyam nistitam viruhitam Shishyastiham sharimantvam papanam. Arjuna says, now I am confused about my duty, and I have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple, and the soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. And so this word kapanya here refers to, or translates as, of miserliness. Kapanya doshu upahata svabhavaha. That literally means by being afflicted of the weakness of the characteristics of miserliness or something like that. Being afflicted means suffering. Let's make it more easy. And the weakness, sentimental weakness, which struck Arjuna was that he knew very well his duties. And before he was arguing so much about Krishna, this and that, and the women will be not protected, and so he knows all the instructions of the Shastras, of morals. And also he has a good reason and a good character himself, a good discrimination, but somehow his Krishna conscious got clear and confused. Discrimination got lost because out of attachment, out of this love and affection, which we can translate as attachment. Can everyone follow still, or this is already a little too long? Is it clear? Okay, so I'll read the purport. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone.
Oh, I can take
Yeah.
the Russian.
2-7.
2-7, yes. 2-7, this one.
So I will read again the purport. Are you there?
Not yet. I'm close. Yes, I have.
Okay,
Go
so-
with the all commentary.
Yes. By nature's own way, you can be actually grateful because, Srila Prabhupada, he is purifying us by Krishna Katha. So we should always be eager for Krishna Katha, no matter how long, how many weeks and days and years we should be sitting very peacefully, like Maharaj Parikshit, who said for 7 days he knew he had to die, completely undisturbed, and his resolution was, okay, I'm going to fast to death. And thus he was very peacefully listening. Okay, so purport. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step, there is perplexity. And therefore, it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. Old Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the signs of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not, therefore, remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Now comes something really important. Who is the man in material perplexities? Who does that relate to? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 3:8-10, the perplexed man is described as follows. Yuva ekat aksharam gagi avidit vasmal lokapraiti sakripana. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human, and who thus quits this world like the cats and dogs without understanding the signs of self-realization. This human form of life is the most valuable asset for the living entity, who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is the Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. The Kripanas, or miserly persons, waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc. in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members, on the basis of scarcity. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death. Or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals, who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. That is very interesting. Here, Srila Prabhupada says that he could understand what is the problem, but he was unable to act accordingly, to act for the solution. So therefore we need the spiritual master. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still, on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. How does he do that? He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. That is very relevant for us too, actually. That is very relevant for us too, because sometimes we may have the concept of ourselves that, oh yes, I already know. I know Prabhu, thank you, But, do we act accordingly? That shows itself in our character and our moods. And this is the beauty in devotional service, that we can learn to correct ourselves. How? First of all, we need humility. We want to be able to submit ourselves, we accept some another person. You are in false ego, don't speak so much in the kitchen, you rather chant, or you be quiet, and you wash the pots. Sometimes it can really be heavy, or when you cut the vegetables and the mind starts speculating, this size will be okay. But then the cook is like displeased like anything, and now it's gonna be all mashed. It should be one size, because the rascal mind is thinking independently. So therefore we need submission. We need to first of all accept, somebody else is higher than me, who can correct me. This is the reason why I came here, by the way. To start again my devotional life and to be corrected and to learn. And yesterday was such a beautiful occasion when I was serving in the kitchen, and it was very nice, very humbling and very sweet, and I was very happy with that experience. I was just doing insignificant cleaning services and cutting and everything, but that was so nice.
Actually, it was significant because you did a lot of things.
You're very generous. I was
correcting you
because I see it differently, but of course the devotees are like bumblebees, so they're always seeing the nectar. Okay, but the point is the submission. So when we submit ourselves, then we offer ourselves as disciples, and Arjuna is doing that here. He wants to stop friendly talks. That means he wants to stop friendly talks means he's not seeing himself on the same platform like the other person. He sees himself lower than the grass on the street. Or in Shikshashika, where sometimes being translated as we should think ourselves to be lower than the straw in the street. And before the streets were the stones, when there was only muddy streets, people they used to throw straw there in order to suck the water so that they can walk there. So everybody would basically stand on that, to be lower than the straw on the street, which is purposefully being, put down to stand upon and everything. So this is the mentality which is really helpful. One of the mentalities mentioned in this verse to become a devotee, which is Zentrum. To think ourselves lower than anything. And we can see this when we hear, like 2 days ago, from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj, Goswami Maharaj, he is always saying, I am lower than the warm and the stool, Everyone who chants my name, he will be, contaminated with so many sins, But the pure devotee generally, he genuinely feels like that. He feels himself lower. So we can reflect, if we go on in our own time, how much we ourselves are already feeling lower than other people, or how much we want to put ourselves against others. Before they go, I am lost, I am I am the center of the universe and I know everything. Prabhu, I know. No, you don't know. Actually, but this is also one sign of avidya, of ignorance. We consider ourselves to be the ultimate, So talks between the master and the disciple are serious. And now, Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna is the first disciple for understanding the Bhagavad Gita. How Arjuna understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself. And yet, foolish, mundane scholars explain that one need not to submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without. And one who has no sense of understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. And then also, in the next verse, actually, we can see, I will just read the translation only from the verse, not the whole. But just to, because now what we did, we heard the symptoms of being foolish, being miserly attached. And so in order to guide ourselves, I think this is very helpful to understand. And now we want to understand the grievousness, the strength of this kind of confusion. So Krishna, Lord Krishna explains here, I can, actually Arjuna, I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying out my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the Devi gods in heaven. So basically you say, not even if I have an unquestioned kingdom like a paradise on earth, you know, will I be able to solve the problem. And actually another indicator of this seriousness of this strength, he says, this grief is drying up my senses. Do we have this experience in our lives too? That sometimes we feel, oh, life is useless if I did not do this or did not experience that or something. Can we relate to this emptiness, this desperate feeling of everything is for nothing? So this is this, at least I understand this, grief which is drying up my senses, because then everything seems to be null and void, you know. The senses don't give one pleasure anymore, and we think, oh, I'm so foolish, or this person left me and I don't want to live anymore, or whatever. So this is such a strong feeling that is so confusing. And the previous verse in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained that this is just like these confusions in material life, they appear like the forest fire. Nobody is purposefully setting fire to the forest. But just simply by the friction of the bamboo sticks, somehow the sparks come and the forest is set ablaze. And so we also have this experience that sometimes we interact and some sparks are flying from this interaction, and also the mind becomes disturbed by so many waves maybe, and then we also become confused and we lose our intelligence, and again we take shelter maybe in eating or sleeping or something which are material propensities, right? So we fall down again into the pool of material existence. So this is our problem, in other words, I want to say. And okay, but now we want to find the solution, right? Oh, that's a nice verse. Let me take. Anyway, I will just paraphrase what I got from that verse. So when we fall down into the pool of material existence, being disturbed in mind, what can happen is that, first of all, this disturbance of mind can come from misconceptions. That we hold on, we cling to some concept that, no, I need to live my life according to this value or this expectations, and then I project my expectations or values on other people, and I say, but I don't understand that person, Because we assume ourselves to be, everyone is like us, you know, we think we are the center of the universe, and we can understand how other people are different. And then the friction comes, and the fire. And another thing what can cause that, another problematic obstacle to overcome in devotional service, is to unnecessarily engage in, of course, in sense gratification, but why in sense gratification? Because we identify with the material body or mind, the body. I am pregnant, or I am a woman, and I need to behave in a certain way. Or I am a who, and I need to have certain rights, right? People need to respect me and render service unto me, or whatever, you know. So this can be also one source of confusion, actually. And the first one which I mentioned was if we neglect devotional service, and we had this example of Maharaj Bhagavatam, that he neglected devotee association, and I told you how also that happened to me, plus I neglected to chant attentively and study the books. You know, this world, this material world is constructed in such a way to keep people away from God consciousness. If you engage the people 40 hours per week in working hard, they will be so tired after work that they can hardly do anything. And then they have to take care of their family members, or if they don't have family, they need to do their shopping and paperwork and everything. So this world is very entangled. And it's not meant to be like that, but this is currently the circumstance. And I just want to remind us that if we choose to follow our mind, we may find ourselves again being more entangled in the material world more quickly than we can even think. More quickly than we can even think. We can be out of the temple, and can be in the mud of material life, stuck, you know. I don't know, did you ever experience being stuck in a mud, which is maybe a little higher underneath the knees or something? It's really hard to move from there. Like you have to hold on to the shoe or whatever you have, because otherwise you will lose that together with the socks. You know, it becomes very dirty and it's like really heavy. So this material world can be even described like this sand in which you can even drown. I don't know the English word, but you know, this quicksand that comes. So the more you try to free yourself, the more you think yourself. So this is also the nature of this world and the nature of this confusion. This is the nature of Maya. Maya, Devi, has two potencies. She has one potency which is covering our original knowledge, because as souls we are full of knowledge and consciousness. But Maya Devi, she's empowered to cover that, and the second of her powers is to drag down the consciousness of the living entity. And this we can experience daily if we are not careful. Okay, so that was a little warning. One of the solutions which I found when I was studying now in preparation for the class, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 6, Text 17, and the verse it is mentioned that the devotees always bathe themselves in devotional activities. Devotees bath, they take bath in devotional activities. And we have different examples of the devotional processes. We know that there's this 9 devotional processes: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smanam, Asha Sevanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So we have these 9 processes. What?
And Padasevanam.
And Padasevanam, yeah. This is maybe the most important. So, Maharaj Ambarish, for us, is a very good example because he engaged all of his senses and everything, all of his facilities that he got in these 9 processes. So he really bathed in devotional service. And I remember some time ago, I also, in Srimad Bhagavatam verse and also in classes, I have several times heard how to execute devotional service is really important. And this I can also only share with you from my experience. If we sometimes become neglectful, for example, when we feel not properly taken care of or something which happened to me. That was my misconception. Which is natural because it's related to faith, right? We want to be loved and we want to contribute and everything. But so when we neglect for some reason or other to follow strictly Tibrena Bhakti, Tibrena relates to the fire of devotion. It means we need to strongly engage. Like Srila Prabhupada says here in his birth today, in the purpose, very attentively, very cautious. And this cannot be underestimated. And as Srila Prabhupada said, he was worried that his disciples do not sufficiently fear Maya. And this is natural, of course, because the beauty of devotional service is being described in the Nectar of Devotion. The first two sentences are that, like when you have a small seedling that is sticking, that's coming through the soil, and the first two leaves appear, and the one leaf is compared to finding relief from all distress, and the second one is to finding great happiness, bliss. So when we come to devotional service and we in this way experience such a predominant relief of material suffering and so much joy, we can also be a little bit blinded, that, oh yes, I like this, I like that. That means the mind is judging and is saying, oh yeah, this is comfortable. And then this is comfortable. And as soon as some problems come, this person, like a typical new Bhakta or something, we can observe that very clearly. Yeah. So, but we can be blinded by that also. Therefore we need to practice very strongly. Tibrena Bhakti, very cautiously. We have the example of Maharaj Bharat here, who was almost completely self-realized, almost Krishna Seva platform. And he even fell down. Can you imagine? I mean, for me this is like such a heavy warning. Okay. Okay, I'll just quickly summarize because the time is almost over. So, what we can do now, or in our private study time today, because now the time is over of the class and we have sufficient time, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, we find the instructions of Maharaj Rishabhadev.
And what is the verse?
This is, no, the whole chapter. This is for our private study time. I just started and it's really insightful. So, because we want a solution, right? We don't want to be stuck in that confusion and all these obstacles and everything. So what is the solution? First of all, Srila Prabhupada is Bhagavad Gita. He gave the most important solution. That is, we need to accept a spiritual master. But not only formally, we need to be ready to immediately implement his instructions. For the disciple, instructions of the Guru are not different from his life. This was also one mistake which I did not do, following my mind. And I cannot recommend it to you, it's not very happy experience. And so the next one, by reading this 5th chapter of the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, by following these instructions and applying them in our life, we can gain pure devotional service. That is another very important thing we need to watch out for, that we constantly need to check, to introspect, and to see, to check if we really are acting purely. We want to really please the Guru, the Vaishnava, Srila Prabhupada, or if we just want to, satisfy the mind and the senses, be comfortable. Or maybe the intelligence, but the jnana, jnana bhaktis. And another nice thing, which I found, another helpful solution is Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. By regularly serving the devotees and the pure devotees. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, like always doing that. That keeps us protected. that keeps us like a lotus, which is growing in the mud. But the lotus leaves have a nice covering, and they never have any stain of mud or even a drop of water. They're always sublimely pure. So we can keep us similarly like that, pure, by at least these three things. Pure devotional service, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, and what was the other one? I just said.
Following the instructions.
Yeah, following immediately. Exactly. Taking them to our heart. Anyway, and here another one is mentioned, which means we must be completely free from sin. This is also mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, and it's been described also in Srimad Bhagavatam, that in Bharatvarsha, the people generally, they have very easy access to understanding devotional service because they are so pious. So we need to take precautions, be careful, not to sin, not to deviate from our rules and regulations. Yeah, we should be careful not to fall down from acting according to rules and regulations and act sinfully. Because that can also be a big obstacle. So, in this way, we can come out of our ignorance, out of our Ishvara Bhava, that we consider ourselves to be the center of the universe, and the controller, the maker of everything. And we can avoid the obstacles of abandoning rules and regulations and our disciplines, Vaishnava Sangha, or studying the books, or penance japa. And this all is just for us, for helping us to develop Buddha Yoga, to have an educated, spiritually strengthened intelligence, the proper discrimination, Shastra, Shashush. And that will help us to cut the knot of attachment. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And I don't know if we still have some time for questions, but it's already late. Otherwise, if you want to discuss further, we can do so. Then I thank you very much for your
one important point. Always stay in the association of devotees.
Kayani Mataji Maharani, she is kindly saying one important point is the most important one is to always stay in the association of the devotees. And you know the example that is given? An analogy? Maya Devi is so strong, as I explained. And we, as single people, as individual persons, we are compared to one straw. And so if you have many straws together, like now sometimes you can see when the people that harvest the fields, you cannot break it anymore. It's impossible. Even itself is not very strong. But by always sticking together, always, then we can be protected. And this is really the mercy of the devotees. So thank you very much for your merciful association, for allowing me to be here and for your service and the Bhagavad Gita.